Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your Sunday night show as we talk about Mason Greenwood being cashed in on. According to Fabrizio Romano, this is the most likely outcome this summer. What are your thoughts on that? Also, Ten Hag asking for more time, and actually, are there more hints that he needs more time based on what Liverpool have just done, which was incredible today? Also, time for change. Time is up, whatever you want to call it. Manchester United's new CEO is going to implement, apparently, a very strict wage structure that will be based on performance and not based on bottom line wage. But how does that work when we've got so many players on big contracts already? How do you change that structure? And will that not cause more issues? Fast track for Dan Ashworth. Apparently that's what's going to happen. And also a story that Manchester United might look at Ross Barkley. Would you take Ross Barkley at Manchester United? Unbelievable. We'll get into all of that. But first of all, we're going to start off with this Mason Greenwood story. I do want to talk about Ten Hag. I know it's a big topic for everybody. I've got something I think that's quite interesting to say about Ten Hag and Jurgen Klopp and Sir Alex Ferguson and Mikel Arteta. But I just don't know how many of you will take it. But you know what? I don't mind saying it. We don't always have to agree. And we don't always agree. So that's absolutely fine. But this is coming in from Fabrizio Romano today. And it's probably the most significant update we've had on Mason Greenwood. And we always talk about the decision will be made in the summer, what the fans want to do. Can we do a poll? 70% want him back, 30% don't, 60 do, 40 don't. Whatever that poll is, Fabrizio Romano is well tapped in. And this is what he's had to say today. What I can tell you is that the feeling internally at Manchester United is that they will cash in on Mason Greenwood. Now, what does that make you feel? Doomed Humanity 31, welcome to the members club. Thank you very much for that. We'll get a poll going on Ross Barkley, actually. That'll be quite useful for later on. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? What you thought? Ross Barkley's 30, by the way. Somebody just asked, yes or no, Ross Barkley. Look, I do think it's the most significant update we've had on Mason Greenwood. And I still think that we will have to wait until the summer, and that waiting for a definitive answer in February is probably naive. However, it's interesting that Fabrizio is hearing that the internal feeling at the moment is that they will cash in. Now, of course, we don't have a director of football. And when we talk about Elise or when we talk about selling players, we don't have a director of football at the moment. And what is the job of the director of football? Recruitment, retention, removal. The 3 R's. So I would always say, even if the rumour was the intention is to probably keep him, I'd still say, well, that can change. So let's be even-handed here. It doesn't really matter what you think or I think. This can change. It's subject to change. But it is interesting because obviously Sir Jim Radcliffe was asked last week about Mason Greenwood, and some people felt that because he didn't say he was up for sale, it might mean that he's going to keep him. As I said, that was a very political answer. Sir Jim Radcliffe can't sit there and say I'm selling Mason Greenwood in February because it massively reduces his value and it's not fair. So I think that, look, internally, Manchester United have always expressed an opinion that they want to move him on. That's exactly what the statement said last August. If they change that, it would be a very big decision to make. They may well still do that, but I think I wouldn't really be too concerned about what Fabrizio is hearing, because it's only what they said in August. When I got sent that when I was watching the Chelsea-Liverpool game, and it's a significant update because it's from Fabrizio. But the person who sent it to me, I replied and went, well, look, at the end of the day, that's only what the club said in August. They said that this was the end of Mason Greenwood at Man United, and they were all collectively going to work for a way for him to move on, starting with a loan to Getafe. And this summer, you would expect it to be a move somewhere. So that's what we were told in August. The only thing that can change is change. I'd still keep an open mind about it. I still think it could change. Honestly, being pragmatic, playing devil's advocate, of course it could. But yeah, I'd also agree with what Fabrizio is saying and hearing, that I think you've got to logically assume that the more likely outcome is that United do cash in for a multitude of reasons. Very, very good player, but brings a lot of heat on the football club that they might not want. Very, very good player that has a cash value as a youth player that goes straight into FFP. So yeah, I can see why the more the more likely outcome is that we do cash in. But as I said, I still wouldn't say it's definite. When the going gets tough, Ten Hag gets rough, says Nathan. Oh, don't remind me of that. And Black Wolf says, Mark, honest question. Was there any backlash from Barcelona fans when the player from Getafe was linked to Camp Nou? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't follow La Liga, and I don't know that. I know he's very well liked at Getafe, and I think they would like to keep him, but I don't actually know. Funnily enough, on the Ross Barkley story at the moment, we will talk about that. 79% of you wouldn't take him at Manchester United. We will talk about that, but CC says, I say no to Barkley, but I support the Reds. He's reliable and has some quality, probably downside for a United fan, says CC. Ross Barkley is not a United player, says Donald. And Sir Jim Radcliffe said what he said to keep value, saying you don't want Mason would be stupid, says PJ. I agree with that. And also, season is over, sack the manager and start rebuilding for next season, says Gary Barlow. And The Ferocious says, Eric Ten Hag's gone, Sir Jim didn't hire him, he never takes any accountability for poor performances, he lies to the fans and insults our intelligence. Okay, it's all kicking off, lovely stuff. And Meal says, Eric Ten Hag out personally, his in-game management is awful, I would get Hansi Flick. Okay, that would be great, really looking forward to that. And I think Ten Hag needs players who want to play for the club, and at the moment Rashford is not doing that, says Paul. And Sir Jim Radcliffe said what he said to I've done that one from PGM. Okay, so that's the latest in relation to Mason Greenwood. Get your comments in below on that one. Right, next point. We can go back and forth. We're well experienced in that. Ten Hag wants more time. Now, football's very topical, isn't it? And this afternoon I was on That's Football watching an intriguing cup final. We were the Carabao Cup holders. We're not anymore. It's Liverpool again. Incredible game of football where in extra time I'm watching hundreds of millions of pounds of talent play against a bunch of kids. And the bunch of kids outplayed the hundreds of millions of pounds of talent. I mean, we think we've got problems at Manchester United. Chelsea, my God. I mean, they have spent £1 billion and they're mid-table and they're dreadful. And I thought, wow, that's unbelievable. Like, that is unbelievable. But bringing it back to Manchester United, people are then saying, predictably, that Manchester United are... that's an interesting one. I'll come back to this one in a moment. I've just been sent this by Kev. We'll talk about this. So apparently Sport Bible are saying that Pep Guardiola has reportedly admitted in private that Marcus Rashford is the only Man United player good enough to play for Man City regularly. Do you agree with Pep? I mean, I don't know where Sport Bible are getting the privately stuff from, but I don't know whether Pep watches Man United then, because I completely disagree with that one. You know, maybe we can talk about that. It's an interesting one. I mean, it's an interesting one. There's no doubting that Marcus Rashford's a good player, but I haven't seen anything in him over the last 3 years that makes him a Man City player. I mean, if Marcus Rashford can play for Manchester City, then so can Bruno Fernandes. I mean, I don't know. But look, how valid that is, I don't know. Going back to what we were talking about Liverpool, a lot of people, obviously, what did I say this morning? Opinion without accountability. Let's get into it. That's going to be our new word, I feel, at the moment. Our new 3 words. Opinion without accountability isn't valid opinion. So Liverpool beat Chelsea. And lo and behold, you log on to Twitter or X or whatever they want to call it, and you see Klopp can beat Chelsea's billionaires with a bunch of youth, but Ten Hag can't do it with injuries. And you know what? If you're looking for a good tweet that might get you growth, try it. Because I tell you what, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, they love opinion tweets with no accountability. They love it. You can make a statement, a stupid statement, and make yourself look really intelligent. How are people comparing Man United's injury crisis and problems with Liverpool being able to beat Chelsea with a bunch of kids? It's an opinion, but it's one that falls apart in 30 seconds because Jurgen Klopp would not have been able to do this in the first 18 months. No way. Absolutely not. Jurgen Klopp's been there for 8 years. Those youngsters were probably about 10 when he came into the club. That is a structure that Jurgen Klopp had above him for the last 8 years. That is a project that's been running from top to bottom for 8 years. You cannot compare United's inability to play good football when there is an injury crisis with Liverpool's ability 8 years in to have a system that the whole club knows. I can't believe that this is actually a valid point that people think they're making. I mean, you give Erik ten Hag 8 years and the 12-year-olds in our team will be coming through and playing the same way as the first team. These things take time. And it sort of got me thinking again. I mean, I don't want to sack Ten Hag, you know that. I don't want to sack Ten Hag because I've seen so many cycles of sacking the manager and the players getting away with it. I've explained that. But it actually gave me, and I wanted to share it with you, it actually gave me another reason not to sack Ten Hag, even though people were trying to use it as a reason to sack him. When people are saying Jurgen Klopp can beat Chelsea with a load of kids, and yet Ten Hag can't beat Fulham when he's got an injury crisis, they actually give me more ammunition to back the manager, because I think, well, hold on a minute, this is actually not a reason to sack him. This is a reason to keep him. Because Jurgen Klopp wasn't winning everything in his first 18 months. Far from it. I remember doing clips. I was taking the piss out of it. They were losing all over the place. But 8 years down the line, this just shows you what longevity and structure brings. Jurgen Klopp had a structure, a belief, a backing, and he's rebuilt that football club from top to bottom in his vision, whereby when he has 9 players out, he's got youngsters who will come in and play the same way. This is actually an advert for building a long-term project, something Man United haven't done since Sir Alex. And actually, it's not the first time it's happened. Way back in the 80s, Sir Alex Ferguson came in 86. Didn't really start winning anything until 90. 4-year project. Okay, that's a long time ago. Jurgen Klopp's not a long time ago. Jurgen Klopp's done it over the last 8 years. Oh, and hold on. Can I throw another name in? Arteta out. Arteta out. Arteta out, I tell ya. They were printing T-shirts. They had T-shirts saying Arteta out on. Get him out of my club. Get Lego Head out of my club. The big fraud. Get him out. Arteta out. Doesn't know what he's doing. Why is he getting rid of Aubameyang? Obama what? You know, this was all happening. Get rid of Arteta. The results are rubbish. The football's crap. There's no style of play. He's an embarrassment. 2 years later, he's got them in title races. They're playing brilliant football. They've got a young team. It's vibrant. I think, you know what? That Liverpool result and the reaction to it and how it's Ten Hag's fault has actually given me more belief that we absolutely need to build a structure at this football club, and we actually need to see a project through. And I think Ten Hag is right. He does need more time. It's whether he's going to get the time, I don't know. But what I do know is, let's get Hansi Flick in, like someone just said there, right? If that happens, it happens. I'm not walking away from United. That's not. We've done worse than that, and I've still supported United. I'm not going to walk away. But let's bring Hansi Flick in. Let's bring Nagelsmann in. Let's bring De Zerbi in, right? What do you think happens when that happens? Well, these aren't my players. I need my own players. I need another 400 million quid. I need to just get rid of these players as well. It's another reset. It's another project. And in 2 years' time, when it goes wrong again, will we sack that person? At some point, you've got to stick with somebody and go with it. And that's what I feel. I think we've got to stick with it and give it a go. Mark is on fire. Great show, says Nigel. Well, bounce back at me. I love it. I completely back Ten Hag. There is no accountability or consistency with these players. He can lead a horse to water, but he can't make it drink, says Z3. I'm not sure how Ten Hag outers think a new manager will succeed with this group. If Ineos sack Ten Hag, they better change the entire squad, but United is broke, says Kia. Fulman, thank you very much for being a member for 8 months. I can imagine Pep saying that. Proper wind-up merchant. Rashford is so good, says Nick P. Look, let's just go back to that point because I want to sort of bring it in. Kev just sent me this thing that apparently, privately, Pep Guardiola has said that Man United's Marcus Rashford is the only player at Manchester United good enough to play for Man City regularly. I mean, Pep is a wind-up merchant. I've seen Pep, and he'll do it again this week. When we're shit, Pep starts talking about how good we are. He doesn't want us to do well. We've just nicked Barada as well. Look, I'm probably dislike you. I actually do rate Marcus Rashford, and I know a lot of you don't. But I do rate Marcus Rashford, but I've played the game. I watch football, and I don't for 1 minute think that Marcus Rashford plays regularly for Man City. I can't see it. I really can't. And look, we all dissect football in a different way. And on this thing, how does Marcus Rashford start for Man City? They play possession football in the final third, so there's not a lot of opportunity to get in behind. It's all about passing and rotating the ball, which he doesn't do a lot of. Pep hates long-distance shots, which Marcus Rashford likes a lot of. So if Pep Guardiola has seen something in Marcus Rashford that would make him play regularly for Man City, it's not the Marcus Rashford we've seen. He obviously thinks he can turn him into something we've never seen, because none of his traits suit Man City. You know, running at players, getting in behind and shooting from distance and not passing, that's not Man City at all. Look at what he did to Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish was a close control player who took people on. Doesn't do it anymore. So I don't see how Rashford fits Man City at all. I think that's either Pep sees something in Rashford that's never been used, or he's just doing it for the banter to wind us up. I don't know. I think Marcus Rashford would work in certain teams. I think PSG would suit him. The question is, would PSG want him at the moment as well? It's our problem to solve. It's Marcus Rashford's problem to solve. I personally don't think Marcus Rashford's that interested in football at the moment. I think I've said it before. I don't think anybody should be afraid of calling out bad performances. Bruno got called out as much as Rashford did yesterday, quite rightly. If they want to take it personally, it's up to them. But what they never ever do is understand that people aren't really going in on Eriksen. They're not really going in on Delot. They're not really going in on Maguire or McTominay, who came on at half-time and wasn't very good. Why? Because people don't actually care enough about those players to think that they're significant enough. There was a lot of bad performances for United yesterday. The reason Rashford and Bruno get the heat is because we all know they're way better than that. You know, no one's going to moan about a crap player having a crap game. But we moan about Rashford and Bruno because we know they're better and they're way below where they should be. But they don't figure that out. They just think everyone's having a pop at them. It's actually a compliment. You know, people actually are disappointed with you because they know you're better than that. Ari says that Hansi Flick is nailed on to go to Barcelona. No top manager available would choose us over the other top teams in Europe, says Ari. I don't know. I don't know. But what is interesting on this, and I don't know whether you saw this today, there's quite a lot of news in today, which is weird for a Sunday evening show. But apparently, this is coming in from the Mirror, that Omar Barada is going to be tasked with keeping basic salaries below 300,000 a week. Although Ineos are understood to be aware of circumstances where that may require more flexibility. I mean, I don't even know what that means. And also, they're saying that Manchester United now want to fast-track an agreement with Newcastle to appoint Dan Ashworth as sporting director. I don't really understand why we haven't fast-tracked that anyway. But also in the same article, it says Sir Jim Ratcliffe is set to get tough with Manchester United's highest earners by introducing a bonus-led pay structure that will only see players cash in if they are successful. And the question has to be why we've not done this in the first place. But the problem will be the players that we've got here already on big wages. If you sell Casemiro, Varane, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, you're fine. You've just got rid of everybody over 300k a week. But if you only get rid of two of them, and then you start this structure, mate, imagine you go and buy, I don't know, imagine you buy Michael Olise in the summer, and you give him 150 grand a week, and then bonuses based on performance. And then next season, he's our best player. And then at the end of next season, he knocks on the door and he says, I'm on about 250 a week, and I'm the best player by a long way. And Rashford's on 350. What's going on? Well, nothing. You're part of the new breed. You're on the new contract. You're just going to end up with people who are unhappy. You can't have that, because the problem comes when you're playing in a team and you're the better player and you see another player on massive wages. So I'm all for the idea of wage structure. You know, to be honest, I don't know how it works at other clubs, but realistically, a base wage of 150 grand a week is more than enough. And then you can have all sorts in bonuses. I mean, I wouldn't mind giving everybody 250k a week if they were winning every game. You know, so what? The money's coming in. And not everybody, but you know what I mean. 5 or 6 players. But how are we going to change this around? I don't know. And also, in the same article, it says Ineos are aware of circumstances where they might not be able to do that. So proof will be in the pudding on things like that. But the most important bit in that article is that Dan Ashworth being fast-tracked. We've been talking about this for weeks. This is absolutely essential. And I wonder whether the Fulham result has made Man United and Sir Jim realise this, that, and this can only be a good thing, we need to fast-track the director of football because we need to make a lot of decisions very, very soon. We have to have this clear out in the summer. And if you have a clear out, you've got to bring players in. And if you're going to do all that, you need your director of football in now, talking with the manager, with the CEO. We need to be getting on with this now, because if we don't, it's another rebuild, it's another reset, it's another write-off, because Spurs are going into next season with Ange, Villa are going into next season with Emery, Liverpool will obviously have a change, they're vulnerable, Arsenal are going in with Arteta, Man City are going in with Pep. So there's 4 teams next season that really could be stronger. Man City, Arsenal, Villa and Spurs. They're going in to a summer with good managers and momentum. Liverpool, all right, new manager. Might be a problem for them. Chelsea, God knows. Newcastle, God knows. And us. We can't afford to have a summer where we go, reset, let's start all again. Let's see how it goes. Because it's another year out of the Champions League. And if we're out of the Champions League this year, we can't be out of it next year. So get that director of football in, get him in on conversations, start making big decisions. Because if you want to start selling big players, you need to start having big conversations in March. PSG, right now, no Mbappe's gone. They're talking about replacements. If they did ring up and say, we want Bruno, we want Rashford, we want Sancho, whatever they want, where's our director of football to sort this out? We need to get on with it. Junior says we go with Nagelsmann. You need to watch the show this morning, mate, or go and find something that's more your level. I can't talk about Nagelsmann seriously. He's managing Germany until the end of June. How does that work? It doesn't work. If Klopp says to those youngsters to jump off a cliff, they'll do it in a blindfold. But if any United manager says that, he'll be kicked off the cliff, says Sile. Good point. Good point. Rashford, Sancho, Maguire, Anthony, Bruno are on massive wages. They are going nowhere, says King James. Well, this is the challenge that Ineos obviously have. If you give Rashford goals bonus, he'll never pass the ball, says Marcus Stevenson. And Klopp love into the Champions League, says Toby, after 18 months. I mean, are we really doing that? Are we really doing that? Are we really comparing Liverpool to Manchester United and 18 months because I've sat you down with the 8-year thing? Grow up. Grow up. The conversation this afternoon is, how can Klopp win with a bunch of kids, but United can't win against Fulham with an injury crisis? And I said, because he's had 8 years of structure and build to get to that point where everything works from top to bottom. That was the conversation. How can you expect Ten Hag, after 18 months, to be in a situation that Klopp is in after 8 years? And let's not forget, Ten Hag's had 18 months of no structure. He's had 18 months of the Glazers and John Murta. For me, it's day dot the minute we get a proper director of football in and a proper CEO in. Because then Ten Hag, Mourinho, Rangnick, Ollie, Van Gaal, Moyes, they've never had that. It's so important. I swear part of us United fans are so damn annoying. I can't read some of the chat without cringing. They just have their shovel out and ready for Ten Hag, says Dawal. And Klopp was winning straight away. No, he wasn't. I mean, look, right, mate, you're thick. I'm sorry. You're literally putting a comment in seconds after I've just explained a comment about 8 years. He wasn't winning games straight away, because I remember on this channel taking the piss out of Liverpool at the start under Jurgen Klopp. He wasn't winning games straight away. And Arteta wasn't winning games straight away. So, if that's more recent for you, let's talk about that. Arteta was not winning games straight away. He wasn't. He won an FA Cup in his first 6 months by parking the bus, but his second season, and I think his third season, he finished 8th. And they didn't win anything. And the T-shirts were out. And now look at them. So, not everything fits. Not everything fits your little routine or agenda. The fact is, there's a lot of examples of managers that at the start didn't do that well, but given time, built dynasties. And I think that we need to build something with a proper structure. And it terrifies me that we might need another reset, because that will set us back. And what if it's the wrong manager again? We become the Glazers all over again. And I've said it before as well. I think Ineos need to be very, very careful reputationally. If they start doing things that the Glazers did when the Glazers are in bed with them with 50%, people will start to say, what is really going on here? And I personally think, here's something I will drop. I personally think, what is the involvement of the Glazers? What is the involvement of the Glazers? Are they just sat there on holiday, not giving a shit? Or are they actually saying, yeah, I think we should be changing the manager. This is what we do every couple of years. I think we should. And is that going to be listened to? Sebastian, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Right, there's lots to get into, but I must just answer this. Ross Barkley. We've been linked to Ross Barkley today by, I think it was on TalkSport, actually. I mean, look, I hope it's a load of bollocks. But Man United have been linked to Ross Barkley. What are your thoughts on this? Because for me, this is exactly the sort of deal we shouldn't be doing. It's got Christian Eriksen written all over it. He's 30. He's had a good season for Luton. Christian Eriksen was 29. He'd had a good season for Brentford. This is not going to be life-changing for Man United. I would describe Eriksen and Ross Barkley as paddling signings. The sort of, when you're in the water, and what do they call it when you're in the water and you're not swimming, but you're not drowning? You're just, what do they call it? What do they call it? Somebody in the chat will know. What's it called when you're in the water? You're not swimming, you're not drowning, you're just staying on the surface. There's a word for it. Paddling? No. Yeah, when you can stay in one space and you're just like that. I can't remember what the word is. Somebody in the chat better know. But anyway, that's the sort of signing, I think. Treading water. Alex King, you're an absolute legend. We're treading water. And I think that Eriksen was a treading water signing. And it worked to a certain extent. But it wasn't life-changing. It was never going to be long-term. And I don't see why we'd go and do another signing like that. Now, Ross Barkley and Christian Eriksen are different players. But they're the same in a way. Because they're both around the same age. They're both around the same ability. They both don't have a long-term future. And they both feel like stopgaps, treading water. That's not what Ineos are all about. Why would you go and buy a 30-year-old that might do well for a couple of years, but ultimately would go nowhere near Liverpool, Man City or Arsenal? We've been talking about this for years. We need to start signing players that the teams were trying to catch a signing. Otherwise, you'll never catch them. It's like going into it's like being in a race, right? And Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal are a minute ahead of us. And you go into the shop and you can buy seconds. Like, i.e., you can buy 10 seconds and you're 50 seconds behind them instead of a minute, right? But you walk into the shop after they've bought some seconds and then they buy 15 seconds and you buy 10. The gap's just going to get bigger. Ross Barkley doesn't close the gap on Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool. And long term, he doesn't close the gap on them either. It's not even like a young player that might close the gap over 2 years by getting better and better. So, look, Ross Barkley's had a good season for Luton, but I don't think we're going to see Liverpool, Man City or Arsenal queuing up to buy him. And I don't think United should either. Good player, not really what I think United should be going for. Miles says, Mark, if we're to get a new manager, I'd get him after the City game so their new coach can pick who he wants to sell and keep in the summer. I can't actually believe that. I mean, this is astounding, actually. I must just answer this. Thank you very much. The Hughes lad says, I'm not changing the manager, but Eric isn't helping himself. I find this astounding, right? I will acknowledge this. I will acknowledge there is a chance that the manager might get changed in the summer. I will acknowledge that, even though I'm dead against it, because it's still letting the players win. It's still another reset. It's still very Glazer to do that and keep the cycle going. But I would acknowledge there is a chance the manager might get changed at the end of the season. What I really find hilarious is that people think there's a chance he might get sacked in the next few games. I mean, what are you smoking? You actually think there might be a chance that he could get sacked? So after the game tomorrow, when people were saying Ten Hag out, they actually meant let's sack him now. Is that? This is new news to me. I'm not being sarcastic. That's what some of the Ten Hag out movement is. It's not like let's do it in the summer. Some people actually think sack him after the Fulham loss. Like, Tell me, is that real? Like, is that a real thing? It is. Fucking hell. Oh my, it's worse than I thought. That's worse than I thought. So I thought it was at the end of the season. And I think that's ridiculous. But I thought it was at the end of the season. I didn't realise it was like, let's do it now. Oh my Christ. We truly are lost. What the fucking... You know, he has still got the best win ratio in our history. Whether you like it or... Oh, he's lost 10 games. We're 18 months in. Probably longer than that now. He still has got the best win ratio in our history. Now, sometimes I have to double check, but that is true. It's over 60-something%. And remember, we haven't drawn hardly any games this season. But sacking him now... I mean, James Dean's just said it. Erik ten Hag's win percentage is 62.5%. Well, no, I don't care, James. We've just lost to Fulham. He needs to be sacked tonight. Oh my God. I mean, look, this is quite scary how football's gone, isn't it, really? As I said, the Arteta out movement was hilarious, like absolutely hilarious. But the fact that it's now at our football club, God. You know what it is? It's the X Factor generation, isn't it? I want everything and I want it now. It's literally like, yeah, I mean, look, I don't normally get stunned, but this is new news. This is new news to me. Sack him now. Wow. I thought it was to do with the summer. I mean, I have to take a deep breath here. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do it in the summer, but I can acknowledge there's a chance. I mean, come on, there's no chance he's getting sacked before the end of the season. No, well, they did get rid of Moyes in, was it March, late March, but no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Imagine how empowering that would be for the players as well. I don't know who these people think, what they're thinking. I mean, are they just certain player FC or something? Because if you change it in the summer, at least the players are accountable as well. If you change it now, the players sort of like go, yes, we've got our own way, let's start playing football again. The United job would be the fourth best job available this summer if you sack Ten Hag after Liverpool, Barcelona and Bayern, says Jeff Evans. If not for Rasmus, I see as being a mid-table club, says Constantine. And also, the left-back crisis is Ten Hag's fault. Why loan out Alvaro Fernandez, then sign Reguilon, but at the end for no reason? You're wrong. I mean, I don't like to fact check people, but you're wrong. Like, you need to listen to what the facts are. Like, Ten Hag's not at fault for the left back crisis at all. Ten Hag wanted a striker in January. He mentioned that 2 days ago. The club wouldn't give him one because they couldn't afford it. And Ten Hag wanted Reguilon all season, but the club couldn't afford it, so they sent him back. So that's not on the manager. You know, I mean, we can put not subbing Bruno or Rashford on the manager yesterday. You can put starting Forson over Ahmad on the manager if you want to, but you can't start making stuff up. I mean, factually, that's just not correct. He's not at fault for not getting a striker in January, and he's not at fault for Reguilon going back. It was a financial decision. James Dean says, even with the Ten Hag out movement, they still don't listen to the fact that Ten Hag still has the best win percentage. And Nick P says, can I just check we are talking about the actual Ross Barkley as a signing, the guy who was borderline relevant a decade ago. What's next? Shall we hire the So Solid crew for halftime entertainment? Nick, you make me laugh. Kizale and Sebastian, welcome to Members Club. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why we're being linked to Ross Barkley, really, but it's a big fat no from me. Good player, but 78% of the chat, I'm with you on that one. I don't really see what that's all about at all, really. A couple of other things I wanted to bring into you as well. Apparently, Manchester United have approached former Liverpool director of football Julian Ward about joining Dan Ashworth's recruitment team. I mean, not that he's bad, but I'm sort of like, yeah, I'm a bit tired of the recruitment and board now. You know, we've got the CEO, we're going to get the director of football. Let's get to work on the team. Backroom staff and all that is, you know, is somewhat irrelevant to me. It will take care of itself. We've got the right people in place. They'll get the right people in place. Also, just coming in as well, there's so much in today. Reporter for The Telegraph, Mike McGrath, says that Man United have been assessing signing a centre-forward to support Rasmus Højlund and being in the market for a right-back and a right-sided centre-back to bolster their back line. We keep hearing this sort of stuff. it's probably fair to say that we pretty much know that we're in the market for centre backs, midfielders, striker, right back, winger, maybe a left back. There's a lot of players that Man United need, which is what you'd expect when we need a big clear out. This was quite interesting. I mean, I don't know what you think about this. Apparently, Premier League managers want to bring in a rule which will see them treated the same as players and only be allowed to move clubs or be axed during transfer windows. I've never heard such bollocks in all my life, to be honest. So you can only sack a manager in a transfer window. Come on. Even I don't want to see Ten Hag sacked. I don't want to see bloody transfer windows for sackings. I mean, imagine that. It's the February transfer window. You can only sack your manager now. I mean, it would be comically entertaining, but it's not what anybody wants to see, is it? There's a lot of comments to get through here. Keep them coming in. I mean, just throw anything at it now. I just sort of feel like I'm Dan James here. I've whizzed through so many stuff. Daniel Winstanley says, if they sack Ten Hag now, there would be a consolation period, so our summer window would be over. They wouldn't have a replacement before the summer. Yeah. I mean, look, if you sack a manager now, you end up with an interim. If you sack a manager in December, you end up with an interim. We've done that twice. But if you sack a manager in what is effectively March, you end up with an interim. It's like what Chelsea did with Potter. You end up with Lampard. We did it with Moyes. You end up with Giggs. There's no... Again, as I said, I very rarely get shocked, but I was actually shocked by... And I appreciate the comment from the person who said it, that... I really genuinely thought the Ten Hag out movement was about changing the manager in the summer. I didn't realise it was like, sack this fraud now. I'm not calling him a fraud, by the way. I'm just using your words. But yeah, I didn't realise it was that. I mean, in a way, that makes me feel a little bit more confident because I thought the Ten Hag out movement actually had a bit of teeth. But if it's about sacking him now, I mean, that's just shiny new toy, spoil behaviour. It's not about what's best for Manchester United. It's not best to sack a manager now. We end up with an interim till the end of the season, and we end up with players empowered again. Like, that's the worst thing we can do. And anybody says that Hansi Flick will come in now, he won't. No, I can't think of a manager that's taken a job in March and long term. And there's a reason for that. Most managers won't come in till the summer, right? You know why? They don't want to be there in March and April and May when the results are bad and having that on their record. They don't want to do it. Whether it's Jose Mourinho, Pochettino, Ten Hag, whoever, they don't want to come into a job in March because you're taking over damaged goods. It really impacts your win ratio or whatever you want to call it. And if things go really badly, it impacts on you. Whereas if you come in the summer, you get your pre-season, you get your players in, you hit the season fresh, ready, and good to go. Ideally, I understand it. You know, if you could get your manager, it's a bit like a January signing, like Bruno, isn't it? Or Luis Diaz at Liverpool. You bring them in, they get adjusted to the league, and then you hit the next season even harder. But that's players. As a manager, you don't want to come in and take over damaged goods in March, fuck up your win ratio, and then be, not new and fresh and inspiring to your players, which is why people want to come in the summer. If they sack Ten Hag now, I've done that one from Daniel, and Peter Wallace says, so when United win, Ten Hag needs more time. When we lose, it's the players, they ain't good enough. Life doesn't work like that, Mark. Your bias is becoming insufferable. Peter, I'm going to try and respect you here. You are a valid member of this community and you have made a point and you have held me accountable, and that is absolutely fine and I will not dismiss it. But I have a right to come back and I'm trying to understand what you mean. So when United win, Ten Hag needs more time. But when we lose, it's the players that aren't good enough. Life doesn't work like that, Mark. Your bias is becoming insufferable. Yeah, I've read that twice. I still don't know what you're talking about. And life does work like that, mate. In fact, that's what life is. It's not fair. My bias is becoming insufferable to you because I have a different opinion to you. If you don't like it, go and find somebody that shares your opinion. I don't profess to be playing for likes. I tell you what I think, but I will take on your points because that's what we've been doing for 10 years and you've got every right to hold me accountable. It's not bias. It's an opinion that you don't have. Don't call my opinion bias because bias means something completely different. What you're suffering with is the inability to take on other people's opinion in an intelligent and grown-up way. You're calling my opinions bias because they're contrary to yours. And therefore, you believe that your opinion is better than mine, and therefore, my opinion must be based on falsity and bias. And it's not. My opinion is based on sound foundation and explanation. I don't want to sack a manager because we've been doing it for years. I don't want to sack a manager because it allows the players to win. I don't want to sack a manager because I believe in this project, and I believe with structure and better people around him and removal of the toxicity, it can get even better. That's not bias, that's a plan. It's just different to your plan. As for when United win, Ten Hag needs more time. When we lose, it's the players, they ain't good enough. Well, that makes total sense to me. When we win, we see what is possible. When we lose, we see why it's not possible. Life does work like that. When Max Verstappen in a Formula One car wins a race, we see the potential of him in a Red Bull. When he loses a race because there's an engine fault, he loses a race because somebody's fucked up in the engine. So that's exactly how life works. When we win, we see the potential. When we lose, we see the problems. I've been watching football my whole life. That's sound information. I don't really get what your point is with that, because if you look at the Wolves, I mean, I heard somebody today saw somebody say today on Twitter, there's nothing different from the last 4 wins to the loss yesterday. We just got away with it in the last 4 games. I was like, that's incredibly harsh. That is really incredibly harsh, because I watched those 4 wins and they were all incredibly different to Fulham. The fundamental difference was that the Fulham game, the players never turned up. And in the Villa game, Villa were better than us for large parts of it, but they're a good team and we battled and we kept in it together. Luton was like 2 people throwing punches at each other and we were the better team. We were in it together. West Ham, we played well. And Wolves, we nearly threw it away, but we were brilliant for an hour. So I don't think we were... I think Fulham was very different to the 4 wins because we turned up in the 4 wins. We didn't turn up yesterday. And I also think against Wolves, when we won, for 60 minutes, I saw the project. I saw it. I saw the high line. I saw the pressing. I saw the domination. I saw the fact that Wolves couldn't get near our goal. And that, to me, looked great. And then Martinez gets injured. And then Shaw gets injured. And it all starts to fall apart again. So, of course, I've seen in wins reasons to back the manager. And of course, I've seen in losses the players are the problem. Because that's my opinion. I think when we've got the right players, we're a really good team. And we can win. And I think when certain players aren't there, we can't replicate that style of football. And those players are responsible for it. That's just my opinion. It's not bias. It's an opinion. You can say it's wrong. You can disagree with it, but it's based on explanation, surely. What do you think the biggest mistake the club can make this summer would be, says Dimitri? Sacking the manager. Yeah. Sacking the manager, which leads to not clearing out the shit, which leads to another 2 or 3 years of what we've seen over the last decade. And I'll be stunned if Ineos do that. I'll be stunned if Ineos do that. Dean Turner has been a member for 12 months. What a shout out. He says Ten Hag in. King Eric, thanks for your super chat. Please, sir, we want some fair. Laugh out loud, says Josh Dude. And It's Mark says, do you think since we lost to Fulham that we will get a positive PR piece this week? Maybe new director of football announced? Well, you know what? We're living in a PR bubble because Ineos have to do that. I applaud it. I agree with it. Ineos have to keep throwing PR to make themselves look like the right people for the job. So I hope the director of football comes in this week because it's still February. And if the director of football comes in this week in February, that's a lot of time to get to work. So I hope that does happen this week. Why not appoint Roy Keane, says Constantine? Because as much as I like Roy Keane, his actual footballing CV as a coach ain't that good. So that's probably why. It was easy for you to scapegoat Ollie. Oh, here we go. I'm loving the show. All I can say is I'm loving the show because I said this morning. Opinion without accountability is nothing. And I've been held accountable for 10 years by you. And some people don't understand that. I even read some of the comments this morning where when Mark hears something he doesn't like, he just belittles it. Well, I don't. I don't agree with it. And I explain my opinion. I don't just sit there and go, you fucking idiot, fuck off. I have done that before. And I apologise for it when I have. But 99% of the time, I will take the accountability and I'll give you my opinion to it, which is what we should always do. So I love this question from Rash. I know who you are, and I know you do talk a lot of nonsense. And if you've been part of the show, that's not me being horrible. You'll know it. But Rash says it was, and keep these coming. I love it. I'm in that mood. I'm loving this. He says, it was easy for you to scapegoat Ollie, but with Ten Hag, he's immune to criticism. Do I genuinely need to answer this question? Do I need to answer this question? Because to me, this feels like a Twitter question. This feels like a question from somebody who doesn't watch the United Stand, which is basically a lot of what you get in Twitter replies. Okay, so I didn't scapegoat Ollie. I didn't. I was Ollie in a lot longer than most people. And for the people who've been watching the United Stand for over 3 or 4 years, you'll know that. For the people who've been watching the United Stand for over 6 or 7 years, you'll also know I was really late on Mourinho. Like, there was people Mourinho out in our chat from March. I wasn't Mourinho out until we lost to West Ham in October, and then he got sacked in early December. So I was only Mourinho out for a very short period of time. Ollie, I stuck with Ollie until Liverpool, I think. I think it was Liverpool at home. So, yeah, I was Ollie out really, really late. So I don't know how I'm scapegoating Ollie, but Ten Hag's immune to criticism. And also, secondary, I seem to recall even yesterday and many other times I've criticised Ten Hag. Many times I've criticised Ten Hag. But it's a big leap from criticising to sacking a manager. And I just don't believe in that. You know, if I just don't believe in it. I won't do it. I won't do it because it's accumulation. Like, we've done this so many times, it probably makes me more stubborn this time, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and say Ten Hag out because I don't agree with sacking the manager this time. We've done it so many times and it's never worked. So I'm just like, I just think it's the wrong thing to do. And if Ollie was the manager now, I'd say the same. And if Mourinho was the manager now, I'd say the same. At some point, you've got to stop doing the same thing. And you've got to say, like, you know, if you're trying to fix a light bulb and every time you try and fix it, you keep putting a new light bulb in and it says it will last for 12 months and it keeps going out after a week, stop fixing the light bulb. There's obviously something wrong with the structure above it. But people want to keep changing the light bulb. You put a light bulb that says it will last for 12 months in your switch, in your light thing, holder, and after a week it keeps going out, and everyone's telling you change the light bulb. I'm just saying, I'm not changing the light bulb. There's something wrong with the structure above it. The light bulb's not the problem. I've changed it 4 times. I'm not changing it again. You can change it, and maybe this time it won't go out after a week. But this time I'm not changing it because it's happened too many times and it doesn't work. How would you deal with the inconsistency, not just from the players but from the manager? Says Dimitri. Well, I think that the inconsistency of performance at the moment is, I mean, there's a hidden depth to that question. It's a really good one, Dimitri, because I need some water. My throat's killing me. I've been talking so much today because of that cup final. I think when you look at the inconsistencies of Manchester United, there is a hidden, well, it's not even hidden, it's obvious. If I said to you, and if you're not watching live, get in the chat, in the actual comments and tell me this, because it will be very, very personal. Who are the 5 most inconsistent players at Manchester United? You can all play this. I love it. People like the light bulb analogy. Good, because it explains my point. And hopefully people understand it. But who would you say are the 5 most inconsistent players at Manchester United at the moment? Okay? And then when you've got your 5, so I would say, obviously Rashford and Bruno, because they're our arguably 2 best players and most inconsistent players. I would say beyond them, it's sort of difficult, isn't it? I mean, you've got to then talk about players that should be in the team and doing better. I mean, it's difficult. I would say McTominay's got to be in there because he's been there a long time, and he's, you know, if he doesn't score a goal, he doesn't have a good performance. But if he does score a goal, it can be really important. You're probably going to put Luke Shaw in there because inconsistency can be injury. And you would argue maybe an Eriksen, maybe a Maguire. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can say Anthony's inconsistent, Sherlock. I don't agree with that. I think there's a consistency there. But my point is, if you think about your personal 5 most inconsistent players at Man United, and then you look at how long they've been there, and you will find a connection. And there you will find a solution. So when Dimitri says, how would you deal with the inconsistencies, not just from the players, but from the manager? I think there's a direct correlation between inconsistency and time served at United. I think there seems to be, and I remember Paul Robinson, one of our moderators, saying, when Bruno was here at the start, he was brilliant. And then he was brilliant. And I remember Paul Robinson saying, how long before he gets sucked into the inconsistency that infects every Man United player? And what we need to remember is, at the moment, we've got a collection of players, but there's many gone before them with the same issues, whether it's Paul Pogba, whether it's Di Maria, whether it's Schweinsteiger, you know, Daley Blind. Just because they're not here anymore doesn't mean that the same problems haven't been here for a while. Players come in at a certain level and become really inconsistent. And I think there's a direct correlation between time at the club and inconsistency. I mean, look at Martial. Is he not inconsistent? We forgot about him. Brilliant when he first came in. There seems to be with all United players, the longer you're here, the longer you slide. And if you want to deal with inconsistency at Manchester United, I think the first thing you've got to do is remove the most inconsistent players. And there seems to be a direct correlation between time served and inconsistency. So if I was Ineos, I'd be looking at that and I'd be going, there really is a connection between how long players have been here and how far they're falling off. So if we want to turn this around quickly, we need to look at the players that have been here the longest, remove them, and try and solve the problem for the players that are going to come in, and try and rescue people like Mainu, Garnacho and Højlund from going down that road. That's what I would do. Sir Alex Ferguson knew when to sell players, says Timo. He did. Neil Reynolds, thank you very much for your super chat. Oggy says, what's going on with Bruno? Stalwart over the years, but seems lost, burnt out at times. For me, Bruno and Rashford are sort of the same. 2 of my favourite players. Absolutely lost. I don't have any answers. I don't know. I mean, I'm so disappointed with the pair of them. And that's because I know how good they can be. But, you know, it's not a blip. It's an inconsistent run of bad form. Mark, I think Bruno's form is because he plays every minute. That needs to change, says Philco. I agree. I do agree. But, you know, you see Eriksen come on yesterday. He's nowhere near up to it. Mount's not fit. You know, as much as Bruno's not playing well, is there an argument that whoever comes on is not going to be as good? You know, maybe there is. Maybe there is. But yeah, look, I think we keep going around the houses. I mean, but there was a great point made by somebody this morning, and we need to respect it because it's true. And I don't often miss an opportunity to say I did say this. But when we were winning games, and we were talking about, I remember when we'd beaten West Ham, so we'd won 2 games in a row, and somebody said in one of the live chats, we're back, or something like that. And I said, we're not back. If United have taught us anything, and this squad has taught us anything, and even this manager has taught us anything, and Ollie's taught us anything, and Mourinho's taught us anything, is that we're never back. We're never back, and we can't be back like that. We can't just suddenly get Martinez, Shaw and Casemiro back and be back. Being back is winning most games. We're not back. And even then, even when we were winning, I remember having this conversation collectively, and I said, we're not back. We will win, but we will lose. The roller coaster will continue. What we need to hope we can do is, when we lose, we go and win 2 or 3 afterwards. And we are. I mean, the point of what I'm saying is that we're not. I don't think we know where we are at the moment. I really don't. I wouldn't be surprised if we beat Forest, lose to City, beat Everton, Sheffield United, and then you're into the March international break. I think it's going to be a roller coaster for Manchester United between now and the end of the season. And the point of what I was going to say is that actually, if I could just hit the summer now, I would. If somebody said to me now, FA Cup semi-final is where you'll lose and you'll get into the Europa League in 6th, probably just take it. If somebody said to me, you can have 6th in the league and a semi-final in the FA Cup, or you can gamble on what's going to happen, I'd probably take it because it's the summer. Let's go. I want to be in the summer. I want to be in Europe, and then that's probably going to be the Europa League, and because it helps us financially. And I want to clear out these players, get some players in, and hit next season with the removal of as many of the bad players that need to go as possible, the introduction of some right-minded players, and then continue this growth with the likes of Mainu, Garnacho, Højlund, and a few of the players that we have currently as well. And the sooner we can get to that, the better, because I just think this season's going to be, I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, you look at some of the performances and some of the players just don't look interested, do they? Let's be honest. And I think some of them are thinking about the summer and moving. I think some of them are thinking about the Euros. I think some of them are thinking about, their own futures, how much of an impact they can have on changing the manager themselves. I don't think this team is really connected in the way that it needs to be, and I think we need to get to the summer so that we can really have a big change. Sage Thinker, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for that. Marvin says, if that happens, the manager is gone. I don't think so, Marvin. I really don't. I don't think 6th place and a semi-final sacks a manager. I really don't. I think that's ridiculously naive, and I think it would be ridiculously wrong. At some point, you've got to put a price on the disruption of all the injuries, the sale, the lack of investment again in the January transfer window. At some point, you've got to put a realistic stamp on what's actually achievable. And I think this season, if we get 6th place, that's probably about as much as we could have hoped for based on the circumstances that have been around us. Now, you can argue, no, we should have been somewhere else, but I look at it and I go, Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal are way better than us. And if I'm being absolutely honest, Spurs and Villa are better than us. And the reason they're better than us is because more consistency across the season. And I still think that we've had a harder season than them in relation to the injuries. I mean, Spurs had a bad run from November to Christmas with injuries. But what did they do in January? They went and bought Timo Werner and a centre-back. So they instantly give themselves a boost into the second half of the season. We've had the same injuries as Spurs. We get nobody in January, and we've been hit by more injuries. So I think Spurs, Villa, and the top 3 are better than us. And if we finish 6th, I think that's about right. I don't think you can sack a manager because he finishes 6th. I think that's where we are if you know football. And anybody who pretends we're better than Spurs and Villa this year, I think is being really offensive to them. I don't know why all you're tuning on, Bruno, says Mikel. He has given everything we need, someone to support him more. He's done it all over in years. He needs a little help. He has absolute class. Mikel, I mean, look, I'll explain why I'm going in on Bruno. It might be different to everybody else because I have seen people going in on Bruno when I wasn't. And I'm a big fan of Bruno, but I think it gets to a point where effort isn't enough. You know, Scott McTominay's always given effort. Scott McTominay's always given effort, and I've sat here and said it's not enough. Effort's not enough. It should come as standard. I mean, it pisses me off, actually. It pisses me off when I hear fans say effort. I mean, I don't know how long they've supported Man United. I really don't. But I go back to the 94 team. The likes of Cantona, Hughes, Ince, Keane, Pallister, Bruce, Irwin, Giggs, Kanchelskis, Schmeichel. I've probably just named the whole team. Effort as an attribute, as standard. And that ran through as, you know, you speak to Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, David Beckham, Roy Keane, Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, and you say effort. They'd laugh at you. They'd laugh at you. Effort as an attribute, come on. Standards are dropping when we're saying, I like this player because he always puts a shift in. That's the biggest problem Ineos need to solve. McTominay puts effort in. You can't fault the lad for that. Bruno puts effort in. If we're going to say McTominay's not good enough, but he puts the effort in, well, you're being a hypocrite by saying, well, let's leave Bruno alone, because all Bruno's got at the moment is effort. There's nothing else. Now, I do agree with you that Bruno's better than McTominay, and I do agree with you that Bruno's a fantastic player, but we're not seeing it, mate. We're not seeing it. The way he's playing at the moment, he is putting effort in, and look, he's putting more effort in than some who are playing worse, let's be honest, but effort can't be enough. You know, Bruno has done really well for us. And when he's doing badly, he's earned up a lot of, he's got a lot of money in the bank with United fans. Like, you know, if he has a bad performance, you can go, it's Bruno. Let's let him off that one. But that bank's run out now. That bank, you know, he's had so many bad performances. He can't keep going to the bank and saying, remember me, it's Bruno. Like, it gets to a point where you go, but mate, it's been going on for a long time now. I can't keep lending you money based on previous performance. You've actually got to start delivering some goods now. And I think that's where we are with Bruno. The effort you can never, ever deny. But we're Manchester United and you can't get by on effort. There has to be a deliverance of performance. And that's the criticism of Bruno that I'm giving. I agree that there is some people who criticise him unfairly and have done for a long time. But it does get to a point where I don't want to wander into Player FC. I don't want to do that. And I feel that if I was backing Bruno at the moment, I would be Bruno FC, because it would be about liking a player over what he's actually doing for the team. And look, I will love it if Bruno plays brilliantly against Forest and Rashford scores a hat-trick. I won't feel... I don't even care if they cup their ears. I don't care, because I just want Manchester United to win. And I was devastated yesterday. Mark, if we're thinking about signing this summer, Jimenez might be a PR signing to activate those fans that were Chicharito fans, says Lit Ewok. And why did you jump off the positivity train, says Chris. We lost, mate. I'm not an idiot. I mean, you can't be positive about that result yesterday. I think I'd be back on it very, very quickly, Chris, if I had Martinez and Luke Shaw in the team and Rasmus. I think I'd be very, very quickly back on the positivity train. But we didn't have any of those players yesterday, and it was a real letdown. And also, again, I think the positivity train has to be a realistic train. You know, you're on the journey and it's great, but when you stop at a shithole, you've got to say, this is shit. And I feel at the moment, there needs to be some accountability. You can't just, you know, sweep it under the carpet and say everything's okay. Which is apparently what Ten Hag said after the game. I still haven't read those comments. It's too raw. Glennie said, on Ten Hag, going back to the analogy about the light bulb, it would be very annoying to see that light bulb shining brightly in a rival's home after thinking it was busted. Yeah, you're right. But to be fair, you know, there is a good point here. And don't ever say I don't play both sides in relation to there is a Ten Hag out movement. What I will say is, was sacking David Moyes a mistake? No. Was sacking Van Gaal a mistake? No. Was sacking Ollie a mistake? No. Was sacking Ranić a mistake? No, but we should have took him in as a director of football. Was sacking Mourinho a mistake? Well, I think yes. I do think yes. I think that player power sacked Mourinho and the club should have grown a pair. So when you look at all the sackings, the cycle, we got it right 4 out of 5 times. But that's because we appointed 4 people who I think were the wrong people to appoint. Anyway, look, thoroughly enjoyed the show tonight. It's all about conversation. It's all about debate. That's what we're here for. And a lot of good accountability questions, which is what I like to see. You know, that's the way the conversation works. You don't have a good show if you don't have a challenge and an accountability. So really, really enjoy that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Big day tomorrow. I don't know who we've got. I know I'm on with Ben Foster tomorrow. I think I might have Fabrizio on the show tomorrow. It goes from one week to another so quick. We've got a match. We've got a match on Wednesday night. We've got a midweek game, and that's a novelty. And it's a big game as well. I mean, it gets us into the quarterfinals if we win it. But, you know, the way we played against Fulham, Forest have got to be favourites for that. Having said that, I've got a theory. I think at home, we find it really hard with that defence. At home, we have to play a deep line, but we have to press. So there's a gap. Massive gap. But when we play away from home, I think we can play a little bit more defensive and counter. So it might suit us being away from home against Forest, but we'll see. Take care, everyone. Smash a like on the video. I will speak to you all in a bit. And thank you very much for everyone tuning in. And don't forget to get your 5 inconsistent players in. I want to have a look at that for tomorrow's show as well. And remember, we're not meant to agree. I feel I have to repeat this. The whole point of United Stand was real opinion. And you're not meant to agree. If you do agree, that's fine. But you're meant to walk out of this with your own thoughts and ideas. That's what it's all about. Which I find a little bit confusing after 9 years doing this, that people still think that this is meant to be like an expression of one opinion. The whole point of this was to have different opinions. I'm not preaching. I'm not teaching. I'm conversing. That's the whole point of it. I don't actually care if people agree with me or not. It's about generation of opinion so that people can generate their own opinions, because that's what we need. We don't need sheep. We need opinion. But we need opinion with accountability. I want people to think their opinions through. I don't want people to walk around tomorrow saying, let's get Nagelsmann, and then you've not realised that he's managing Germany until at least the start of July. And then how's he going to sell players and buy players when he doesn't come to Manchester until mid-July? It doesn't work. The maths don't work. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you in a bit.